Hi, once again, my name is Allison Raby, and this is my fourth and final theory competency video. We're making it. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about the social information processing theory. The key theorist of this theory, is Joseph Walther. He's the creator of this, obviously I just said that. This is a theory that deals with our interactions via social networking sites and just on technology in general. He believes that relationships grow if you gain more information about the other person, and then you use that information that you've gathered to form interpersonal impressions of who they are. So it's like psychoanalyzing people, but on a less intense level. As you gather information about this person, you begin to form an image of them in your mind, and if you like that image, then you want to get closer to them, and then you learn more about them, and boom, you're creating a relationship online. So you rely more heavily on the person's tone of message or how they word things, what punctuation they use, if there's emojis involved in today's world. Later it would be like a colon and parentheses. Rather than body language, or facial expressions. Of course, now with video chatting and FaceTime, it's not always about how they text or email you. You can actually see them face to face or look on their news feed. They can post videos, pictures, things like that. So it has less to do with text tone, and you can rely more on facial expressions, but that's not always the case. So to talk about the orientation, he originally created this theory to attempt to explain how people form relationships across technology that was popular in the 90s, so like email, in the dinosaur ages. When technology first became available, scholars were skeptic about building relationships with people online. They knew that you could use it for business standpoint, but they didn't think that you could really get any kind of emotion across. There were already 3 theories available to explain the difference between face-to-face communication and communication online. So the social presence theory explored how the lack of an actual person in front of you putting off body heat would create an impersonal communication environment. So without the person there, you would be much more shut off and you wouldn't really want to talk, and it would just turn to more business-like language. Media richness theory explained how face-to-face communication was more rich than online communication because of the mix of verbal and nonverbal messages you could give, and therefore made online communication not the best for forming relationships. So because we didn't have this mix of the nonverbal body language, facial expressions, eye contact, things like that, nonverbal messages coming in, the verbal messages wouldn't be enough to form a close bond, is what they thought at the time. And then the last theory dove into the lack of social context. This is actually the theory's name as well. The theory states that communication online presents the challenge of having no social context about that person, and it gives people a platform to express things they would not normally in person, and in turn creates a negative space to become connected with people. So it's kind of like today's keyboard warriors. I think the example that he gave was Mark Zuckerberg kind of saying some ugly things about his ex-girlfriend, and things that people would not normally say in person. They don't have the guts. And so this was kind of talking about that and how just, you can't be held accountable when you're online. But Walther believed that online users could adapt to Q-limited media and use them to develop close relationships. So Q-limited is referring to the limitations based on the non-verbal communication. Even though he stated this before, much of social media we know today, before that was created, much of it we know today, it applies greatly and is still used in understanding how and why people build relationships online. So even though he created this theory based on how people communicate over email, it still greatly applies to how people communicate now via Twitter, Facebook, FaceTime, Skype, all of it. So pretty much the only critique that I could come about is that from life experience has absolutely no social basis. I don't feel that online or technology-based relationships are the same as in-person relationships. I know he doesn't state that they are the same, but I also do think that he could have acknowledged a little better how vastly different they are. Over the phone, people can present any kind of persona, or computer, any kind of persona they want, and this is not always the same. that they provide in person. So connecting it back with my own life. I've talked about my ex before. I'll do it again. We were in a long distance relationship, and over the phone we always thought that we wanted to be together, but our relationship was great. And as soon as I moved home, everything changed. It was all the stuff that you couldn't see, and they thought that that was preventing you from forming a close bond. Actually, is what broke our close bond. Like, he was super messy and acted like a total jerk face when we were around other people, and I didn't like having to deal with that. But so they're very different. Don't know that one is better than the other. Obviously, in my case, it was the online version that was better than the in-person version, and it's because of this persona that you can create, or these things about you that you can leave off. So I'm not sure. I think that's another argument that you'd have to dive into of, is being online better than being in person, or vice versa. But as far as the theory goes, it's pretty sound and solid. I mean, it hasn't had to change over these last, a decade or two, and so it's pretty solid theory, and that's my only critique that I can really come up with. But I have really enjoyed this class. I've enjoyed having you as my professor. I want to thank you for everything, and I hope that this next final paper and exam goes well. So thank you, and have a good rest of your summer.